is open.
Nice seeing you again. See you.
And I would like to welcome Ramana Jampala, CEO of Avlino, and Hendrik Kramer, the CEO of Fernride. Good afternoon. Someone told me a long time ago that this industry is very conservative and that we've been tying down ships for 4,000 years with ropes, and we still do the same thing today. And so it's my pleasure to introduce today two visionary CEOs that have both a startup history, a young history of startup, and have gone through the early pains of entering a very conservative industry, our industry. And so I'm really excited to hear what their learnings are, what their value propositions are, what their hurdles are, and how it was getting into this market. So first question for Ramana, how difficult was it to enter such an established industry, and how did you manage? Where were the barriers? Good afternoon.
I had a lot more hair on my head before I began Avlino. So, no, but it is a very difficult industry to enter into because for about 30 or 35, 40 years that container business had started, there was a preset way of doing. And for a new entrant to come in and say, no, there is a separate. Guys, any audience who want to step up, please have a drink.
Yeah,
they're all set here.
Bar is open. Grab your drinks.
So it's very difficult. It was very difficult initially to go ahead and say, there's a new way you can stack a container. There's a new way you can go ahead and position equipment. Compared to the traditional way, it was not easy. Our biggest learning was, we were very fortunate to have about 4 or 5 what we call industry advisory board members. So these were the people who were in the industry or still in the industry, but they had a penchant or a drive to go and have new paradigms created in the market. And needless to say, Gunter was one of those advisors. He was the one who told us some of the paths of which customers are perhaps could be possibly early entrants. So having a good industry advisory board was one. And second, we are most grateful to finding that 1 or 2 anchor clients, and those 1 or 2 anchor clients published the results of what we accomplished when we first delivered our solutions. And those results and those people who yield these megaphones of being early adopters was probably the second most effective way that we were able to get through. And last was, I would say, there's nothing that beats timing. We were very lucky with timing. Just around when we introduced this product, the pandemic had stuck. And we were like, holy cow, the company will go under if the pandemic did what it did. But what the pandemic did was, it also created a lot of chaos in the market. And chaos can often be the best friend for AI companies. So we were also lucky that market timing, which was supposed to be a curse, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So part luck and part serendipity was how we were able to crack this market.
Thank you. Hendrik, what misconceptions do traditional maritime customers have about working with a startup?
Yeah, one can think that startups and new technologies is a risky endeavor, right? And I think there's some truth in that, but on the other hand, startups are also your best partners for innovation, since they are so deeply committed to the joint goal of making the customer happy, providing a strong value proposition to the customer, and therefore I think it's actually the best path to provide value, and it's not that risky. Obviously the company and the value proposition and the technology is new, but this does not mean that the people are new, since there are a lot of people that have experience with the technology, or even people that have the experience with the customers. Ramana, you made this good example about having an advisory board with very experienced people, and when you bring that together of experienced customer understanding and deep technology understanding, making a joint startup project successful is not that difficult anymore. So I think this is one of the misconceptions that one can have, and we have proven several times that this is actually wrong, and you can make super successful projects between large corporations and agile corporations like a startup. And the other misconception is that the startups might not understand that the pace of the customer is different to the startup. I think everyone can relate to that the pace of change within a startup is so different to the reality of the customers that those are two different worlds. But what you do, how to overcome this, is that you build a kind of translator in terms of making the change digestible for the customer, and also bringing empathy that your startup might not be the biggest priority always every single day, and you need to give them the customers the kind of change in digestible portions, and then you have a very good win-win situation where the change and this transformation over a decent period of time is happening, but then it's also the power of large corporations that you can have impact at scale, and then it's the power of startup and large corporations to change this industry forward.
Thank you. Ramana, you have established quite some very impressive names in our industry as your customers. And how was that to build trust? Because you probably couldn't offer penalties when you're a startup and say you can penalize me as much as you want. Was there any form of success sharing or anything that you offered those early customers and say, this is what you do? How did you build that trust?
I think it amounts to mainly one key attribute. This is mainly relevant for tech startups. If you are trying to sell a technology, we realize trust can never be built. But if you establish the technology as your paradigm to enter, but it's finally the operational impact or the operational change, we call it KPI or metrics improvement. If you are trying to go ahead and then deliver to an operations team to say, using this technology in a container terminal, can you reduce your rehandle count? Can you reduce the unladen travel distance? Can you improve your gross moves per hour on the key crane side? As long as you go and align your success metrics with an operational team, we found that's where the trust was built. But if we went and said, my prediction algorithms of my AI system are 98%, they would be like, so what? What would I do with it? So alignment of those metrics with operational teams, with the maintenance teams, and with the IT teams was because of which I think we were able to build that trust. And that way the term ROI was also very proven, given that with each KPI metric improvement, they were able to see that for $1 of investment in Avlino or Fernride kind of technology, you are getting $8 to $10 in return. So that's how we were able to go ahead and build the trust over the first several 1, 2, 3 years of deployment.
Thank you. So we learned that it is very resistant to change and new things. But Hendrik, what are the gains of the early adopter? And is there a too early? Can someone be too early trying out something new?
I think one point about our industry is what we can agree all on is that everyone wants to be probably the fast follower, but buy a proven technology and then reap the gains. And I think this is also understandable, and I would probably act as a customer similar like that. But there's also a very good reason to be one of the early adopters, so one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 early customers. Since this is a unique opportunity in history, this is only once in a life cycle of a new technology where you can really shape that technology and product and startup according to your needs. And I think those kind of opportunities and the opportunity cost for missing that is quite high, since someone else, a competitor, might take that opportunity, and therefore I think it's a worthwhile investment. And in the kind of investment horizons where our industry is thinking of, the compounded interest of having early learnings, so there's a value proposition and learnings how to integrate this new technology according to your needs. When you have those learnings 1 or 2 years earlier for your organization, you might change a few of your decisions in the long run, and those 1 or 2 years make a huge difference when you take the compounded interest of those early learnings, and therefore I think there are two very good reasons to start early. But I think with both kind of technologies that we have built here with Avlino and Fernride, those days are also now in the past, where we have now proven to the market that this works, so the technology is there, and also we can now make the fast followers very happy since the technology is proven.
I'll add to that. I'll add to what Hendrik said. For early adopters, you have got an opportunity to go and shape what the product is likely going to be, and that will be customized to your needs. Because when Avlino entered the business of optimization, we did not know all the use cases that were out there, but for the first half a dozen customers, at no one-time costs or customization costs, we were able to go ahead and learn from them, and the clients were able to get the benefit of customizing the solution to their need. So there was a good symbiotic relationship for the early movers, that they were able to get pretty tailored or customized solutions.
So if there is no too early in that sense, what is the true bottleneck, Hendrik, to make decisions? Is it the culture, the decision-making culture, or is it just risk, reluctance, or technology? Why is it not happening faster now?
So for those big changes, it's also okay that there is some time it takes to change the industry. So our industry has seen many of those changes in the past 20 years, and I think also having some empathy for the customer, for a terminal operator, that changing your mode of operations and introducing automation is let's say, risky endeavor, since it means change. No one likes change. I also sometimes don't like change when we have change in the company, but it's about coping with that change and making a success story out of that. And therefore I think the early wins that you can gain together with the low-hanging fruits, I think those are very important also to get in the buy-in from the organizations, to see that those investments in technology really pay off, and it's not only the super large business case that you get once you have a scaled and rolled out solution, but already with the first unit you need to have a strong value proposition and learnings for the customer, and then it's a win-win for both sides.
Okay. Ramana, you were saying that the early adopters in your case had a say. How did you involve them in shaping the product from the beginning on? Was that in a formal process, or did it just happen during installations, or how did you make that happen?
So one of the things that we, I would say, had come more from the customer side was, given we were a new entrant or a no-name company, they kept the bar very high in saying, I want you to meet these KPIs or metrics. So in a way, what had transpired was, it almost became a demand-driven system where the clients were able to go ahead and say, I am having 3 or 4 bottlenecks in my operations. If your systems can be tailored or tweaked to meet those bottlenecks, then I will adopt them. So it was more identifying the problem statements of the client by themselves, and then we building the solution as a common framework to go and address those problems. That's how we were able to cater to the first 3, 4, 5 customers. And at the end of those 3, 4, or 5 customers, that was when we were able to come out with a minimal viable product that we can say could work out of the box 70 or 80% of the time.
Thank you. So, question for both. If you're looking forward, how do you think the collaboration with those early adopters will shape the tone in the industry, what we're going to be using a few years from now?
As I said, I'll repeat one of my earlier points. Avlino has been very fortunate that we have people with pure sales title, we have absolutely zero. And yet we are over in a dozen terminals now. And the reason for that was the early adopters were very passionate about this, and they in turn became the megaphones, or they in turn became the de facto champions or evangelizing the product. So early adopters, if you deliver that partnership-based model, where we didn't look at them as P&L, we looked at them as our co-development partners, we looked at them as partners to whom we have to add value, sometimes even at the expense of our own P&L. So if you take that partnership approach with your first 5 to 10 customers, then I think your downstream applications or downstream deployments can become a bit easier.
There are those early believers in those organizations that took the leap and started working with us 2-3 years ago, where there was no product yet. There was an idea, there was a technology that was working in a proof of concept, but now it's live in production and creating real value, and it's proven. And I think the early adopters in those organizations, there were certain people that made those decisions. And what I hope for in like 3, 4, 5 years, that this trust is really paying off, and our early adopters in those organizations are the superheroes, and we give them the light to shine, since they made some really good decisions early on where there was some risk involved and you needed to believe in the future. But now, 5 steps forward, it works and it provides real value to the customers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll add one scar tissue or one story that if any other young companies here want to know. What we had learned from early on was, if your partners are asking for free POCs, they call it, proof of concepts, our lesson had been run like hell from there, because unless the customers also put their skin in the game, don't try to prove your technology. No matter how cool the technology may be, unless a CFO is willing to sign a check, even if it's for a minimal amount, de minimis amount, but make sure you avoid the pitfall of free POCs. POCs are a death by 1,000 cuts. So avoid that like a plague, and make sure that the risks are split. But on the same note, I'll say, don't make POCs a profit center. POCs should be used only to cover your costs, and make sure those costs are coming from the client. You bring in technology, product, and know-how. They bring the use case, a little bit of financial muscle, and most importantly, the willingness to adopt. If you bring this symbiotic relationship together, that's when we believe the chances of success increases.
Thank you very much. So this was very insightful from those 2 visionary CEOs. Do we have any questions out of the audience? None? Then I would like to invite everyone to grab a drink, and thank you very much, Hendrik. Thank you, Ramana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Real pleasure.